What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you another video. Today's video is a video that I've been meaning to do for a while now. So, as many people know, a while back I did the first 3 episodes of Transformers: Robots in Disguise. I did reviews on each one of them, and those were very popular, and you'd think I should have taken advantage of this sooner and done more videos because they were very popular. I wanted to. I had a lot of other things that I was doing at the time, a lot of videos that I really wanted to make, and I wasn't sure how popular they were going to be. Didn't realize that they were going to be so popular. Doesn't matter. I believe me when I say this, it's not all about the popularity. I appreciate it regardless. I'm just here to make whatever content I can, and this is all for you guys. Believe me when I say this. I'm not looking at this just because I'm not looking at the numbers only. Believe me. I personally just want to make the best content ever, and just show that I really care about you guys, and just want to put things out there that are fun and enjoyable, and things that we can all like in some way. So understand this now, that it's not for for any other purpose but that. So anyway, guys, because we're doing this, we're going to be doing Transformers: Robots in Disguise episode 4 finally. Yeah, I know, episode 4 of 2015 Transformers. Awesome, right? So this is an episode that is really cool. I personally really liked it a lot, and I've really been meaning to do this. For this, I'm definitely going to need to use my computer a little bit, just to make sure that I cover every single point, because it is a long episode. So I will have to look occasionally at my computer. So anyway, guys, let's just talk about it. This episode was one that was really fun. One thing that's interesting about this episode is that it featured 2 Decepticons, which is different from any of the previous episodes, pretty much, mostly. Where, well, it's one of the, I guess you could say the last episode, episode 3, had 2 Decepticons. I believe it's right. Steeljaw and Hammer Strike, previous episode. I believe that's right. 3rd episode was Steeljaw. I feel like that's right. Doesn't matter. Anyway, the point being, yes it is. Okay. Anyway, the point being, I'm just trying to think to myself here. This is another episode that has 2 Decepticons, though the story is completely different, and it's a pretty cool episode. So the episode starts off with, Rusty's always been this character that really just isn't very happy with his living conditions. He really didn't want to have to move away, live in this like scrapyard like area, and it kind of makes sense. I doubt most of us would want to live in this kind of area, and he's really just not happy with the fact that he lives so close to the city, yet he can't be there anymore. And he was very entertained before, but now he's not. But the thing is that his father has his own ideas in mind for his son, and he says, there's a football field nearby. Maybe you want to try and take up football and see if that would be fun or something. And he makes the excuse that he doesn't have a helmet. Apparently there's this weird football player or someone that is known that apparently Danny has the helmet of that player, and it's this really old smelly helmet that he gives him, and that's basically the helmet he uses. So it's weird, but it works. So following this, though, we then see our first Decepticon for the episode, known as Bisk. Bisk, as you may have guessed, is supposed to be a lobster Decepticon, lobster-based Decepticon. They didn't really specify what's his specific name, how in previous episodes there was Underbite who had his own, he was a Chompazoid, for example. They didn't give him a specific type of name. Certain characters, as you may have noticed, do, while others don't. It really depends, it seems. But regardless, Bisk has this lobster-like look and has these crazy eyes. He's also this really wacky character overall. But anyway, what happens is that they end up fighting Bisk. At first, Bisk seems to be pretty powerful. He uses this water blast-like attack, which is pretty crazy. And what ends up happening at one point is that what happens at one point is that they'll end up fighting Bisk, and at one point B's like, I fought Megatron, I fought Starscream, I've even dealt with Dark Energon, and clearly this is a completely different kind of battle, and he compares the two, which is something that's a bit unusual, as you may have guessed, because you're comparing Bisk to Megatron, Starscream, and Dark Energon. I mean, it's a big difference. Not to mention the other thing is that tells you exactly that this isn't after G1. This is clearly probably after Prime, due to the fact that it mentions Dark Energon. Because if you watched even like the first episode of Prime, you will automatically see the Dark Energon that takes over one of the characters' bodies and makes them all evil, and it's a running theme through Prime. So that's a clear indicator that this is supposed to take place after Prime. And yes, Megatron was in that, and Starscream was in that. So yeah, more or less. So same series. Also, the voices, Optimus's voice is identical to his voice in Prime. So when Optimus does appear, which we've seen, we've seen him a few times now, so his voice is identical. Anyway, so they end up dealing with Bisk. They end up doing the special attack on him, and eventually they end up creating this attack, which when they deal with Bisk, at first Bisk just has no problem fighting them, no big deal at all. And then suddenly Grimlock comes from behind, does a cannonball on top of Bisk, knocks him out, and brings him back. And we then see them back at the base, where Grimlock is bragging about how awesome it was to fight Bisk, and how it was and how great it was. And Fix-It, though he can be a very nice character, he envies them, and he really wishes that he could be on the field, out in the field like they are, and so he's jealous of them, and he wishes to do stuff. Fortunately for him, this will be an episode that Fix-It will get a lot of attention, a lot more attention than you might expect. So anyway, following that, we find out that another prisoner has escaped. From a status pod, and the status pods, by the way, are actually pretty important, and they're basically the receptacles in which all the Decepticons originally were kept in while on the ship that Fix-It was on, the prison cell or whatever. So that's kind of the connection so basically another prisoner has escaped. This is the other Decepticon for the episode, and so they have to figure out that. The thing though is that we then see a scene with Rusty. Now, as we mentioned before, Rusty is complaining and he's going to a football field or whatever, so he goes there and he sees a football game going on, and someone throws a ball out, and the ball ends up going out of bounds, and Rusty's right in front of it, so he grabs it, and this boy goes over to him and asked him some questions about, like, hey, I heard that you live near this graveyard, aren't you that boy, right? And then suddenly we see this girl who's playing football, which not always the most not a bad thing, but it's just a bit different. Anyway, her name is Hank. And you may think to yourself, what, a girl named Hank? Well, technically her name is Henrietta, but I get it, because it's kind of an older name, and most people aren't going to really go by Henrietta. I mean, it's kind of a weird name, and it's an old name. I mean, Henrietta, no, that's what it is, Henrietta. But the thing is that it's an old name. Like, I recognize the name, but it's a name that, like, I don't know anyone in my generation, and unless you are of older generation, you're probably not going to have many memories of anyone being called Henrietta. So she goes by Hank, which you may think that's a guy's name. Yeah, well, there are guys that have girls' names, and I guess girls can have guys' names. So, I mean, did I say guys can have girls' names and girls can have guys' names, right? That does happen sometimes. I mean, think about it this way. But of course, this is one of those situations where it's like a name that like is clearly guys. Well, a name like Sam can work for boys and girls. Regardless, we then find out that the guy that ended up asking the question before, apparently his name is Cynthia, but he goes by the name of Butch, which is just kind of funny. At the same time, it's like, yeah, I now, like, at first I was feeling a bit weird about Henrietta being called Hank, but then when you hear that a boy was named Cynthia, like a name that is so clearly feminine and girly, and goes from that to Butch, which is, tough, and I'm like a really nasty person or something like that. No, I mean, that's a pretty big difference, Butch and Cynthia, compared to Henrietta and Hank. I mean, my God, that's a big difference. So, yeah, that compares a lot. But that kid Butch or whatever doesn't really have much purpose after that. But Hank, though, does become a significant character, and I mean, there is that kind of like, it sort of seems like maybe Hank and Rusty have a interest thing going on. Yeah. So anyway, following this, they go into a football game. Rusty gets tackled after defending against another player, and he basically feels like, I should just quit. That's about it. And anyway, he ends up going back to the base, and he's just all annoyed or whatever. Following this, though, we then see, I'm just trying to double check something here. Right. So we then see them back at the base, and Rusty is being asked by his father, so how did the football stuff go? And at first he was gonna tell him, but what ends up happening suddenly is that Hank ends up coming and ends up screaming out for Rusty, and or Russell, whatever. Rusty, I'm just calling him Rusty. As I've said in the past, I'm just gonna call him Rusty. I know people will say, "Oh, it's Russell." No, I prefer calling him Rusty, even though in the titles they actually do say it's Russell. I don't care. Everyone except for his father is allowed to really call him Rusty. Anyway. The point being is that happens, so they all have to transform into their vehicle modes in Grimlock High, so no big deal there. And Hank is like, "Oh, you should join us still. You should be in the next game. Don't worry." And the thing is that he lost his helmet when he was in that football game before, and she brought it back as well. Let's see. One other thing I just remember now is the fact that she actually recognized the helmet and knew, like, oh, it's that player, that the weird historic player or whatever from the football game or whatever. Like, she knew the helmet, she recognized it, she could tell who might have it, and it actually was that person, and it was this like famous old person or whatever. Interesting. So anyway, she tries to convince him, and he's like, all right, I guess I'll try one more time, it's fine, no big deal, might as well. And even though he's not like very excited about it, but he's still willing to do it because it's still something to do. Then following this, all the bots except for Grimlock are told to go after the Decepticon for the episode, the secondary Decepticon, and unlike in the past where Fix-It would never show up, for once Fix-It gets to be part of it. He gets to have his own disguise and be part of Danny's his procedure where he has to do some thing where they can get through the base or whatever. I'm just trying to make sure if I'm confusing that. Let me just see here. Right. Okay, yeah, I am. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. What ends up happening is that at some point, I believe it's a night scene. We end up seeing the secondary Decepticon for the episode, and the Decepticon's name is Chopshot. Now, Chopshot basically looks like a creature that has like 4 eyes, and at first he looks perfectly like, he looks like he could be insect based or arachnid or spider based or whatever. and we find out that he is. In fact, the type of creature he is known as a combiner, and you may be wondering what that means exactly. Well, Chop Shot basically is made up of 5 individual segments, which are basically 5 different spiders that make up one body. So we get to see the villain for the episode. We get to see he can separate into his individual spiders, and the thing is that the individual spiders can sting their other Autobots and shoot and like paralyze them or whatever, and it's a damaging effect. So that's something that we learned also. They eventually escape underground after trying to search for some material to use for a device that they're trying to create. Anyway, following this, and the device, by the way, is a spaceship that they're trying to create, because they're trying to get certain material to eventually create a spaceship. The only thing though that they are missing is fuel. Now, at that point, this is when Danny and Fix-It get involved, because they have to go to a location where the fuel can be located, where they can get a lot of fuel all at once and power the spaceship to go into space and go off the planet, and but potentially go to Cybertron or some other location in space. Anyway, they go in disguise. They do this whole entire thing, and eventually we end up seeing Fix-It being grabbed by Chop Shot, who Chop Shot ends up getting rid of the one spider that takes that is one of his arms, and replaces it with Fix-It, and uses Fix-It like it's when you basically consider it this way. It's like when a little, like really little kid plays with his toys and just starts bashing them everywhere. Like, that's how he basically treats Fix-It. He just basically just starts bashing him at the opponents, bashing them on the ground, doing everything they can to just basically, destroy Fix-It if they can, if possible. And Fix-It doesn't really try to fight back or anything at first, and that's one of his biggest problems, because he's a cowardly being, and really, I mean, what else is he gonna do, you would think? Anyway, what ends up happening is that they end up getting into a scene where what happens is that the remaining spider ends up controlling a truck, which they use that truck, which has fuel in it, to bring it over to the spaceship, and the Autobots have to travel in vehicle mode and follow after Chop Shot, which Chop Shot is actually climbs on top of the truck and travels on top of the truck. And so they have to travel all the way over to the spaceship location. Once over there, they have to walk. Once over there, the thing is that as they're traveling, Chop Shot does a smart tactic, which basically knocks over part of a bridge, which falls and leaves them in a situation where they have to find a way around it and somehow figure out where Chop Shot is. Once they find him, though you may think, oh, just shoot Chop Shot and destroy him. The problem is that they can't just shoot Chop Shot, because first of all, Fix-It is one of the arms. The other reason is because of the fact that if they miss, they might actually ignite the fuel, which may result in the spaceship going off or exploding. And if it explodes, they could be in serious trouble. And that's about it. So that was really bad, obviously. Anyway, following this, knowing that they can't really do much, they get into a situation where they're really in trouble and they're really like stuck, and Bumblebee has to convince Fix-It he has to try to fight back, and he does so, and Fix-It then begins to start punching and beating up Chop Shot by punching and kicking him even while being part of his arm, and basically Chop Shot has no control over his actions anymore, so he just starts destroying him. Eventually what happens is that Chop Shot ends up releasing Fix-It, and at that point they're able to do whatever the heck they want, pretty much, because as long as they don't destroy Fix-It, for the most part, it's not going to be that big of an issue, I mean, at that point. So anyway, that happens, and Chop Shot ends up being frozen over, which is great because that means it's pretty much that robot's at least. I mean, Chop Shot's basically done for, but that one spider from before that was controlling the truck, he escapes following this. So as you may have guessed, most likely going to return again, sort of like Steeljaw in the previous episode, where we think maybe he got like we already know that he escaped, but we weren't really sure what happened, and you can guess that probably he'll turn up again, like Steeljaw will probably. So anyway, following this, we see them back at their base, and we see the the Autobots and Fix-It back at the base, and they're talking to Grimlock, who Grimlock was not allowed to go with them on this journey, and this time, unlike Grimlock, where he was gloating about how great it was to battle, Fix-It ends up gloating to Grimlock, and Grimlock's in awe of him, and it's amazing. It's just really, really funny. So anyway, that's about it, I believe. I'm just gonna double check here, just one last second here. Oh, right. Okay. There's one last thing that I'm forgetting right now, which was stupid of me to not forget this. So then what happens is that they then remember that there's a football game that they have to go and see, because one thing that happens is that Rusty does end up trying again, but Grimlock tries to convince him to do it a third time, and Grimlock, there's this whole entire scene where like Hank shows up again and Grimlock's there, and she basically acts like it's no big deal that there's a that Grimlock's right there, and basically just, instead of freaking out, she's like, oh yeah, nice dinosaur statue, and just convinces him regardless, and just doesn't even treat it like, oh, it's a scary creature. Like, nope, it's just a statue, no big deal, right? Regardless, though, eventually a real game happens, and they use some weird tactic in the football game, which results in them winning the football game. And from a distance, the Autobots get to watch the game and see that Rusty wins, as well as Denny. Denny gets to see it from that same distance, and so it's very cool. They all cheer on Rusty, and then the funny part that happens is that Hank says, hey, you were really good at this. Maybe you'd be good at basketball too. And he just looks at her really pissed, and then goes from being like, you gotta be kidding me, to actually smiling, which is really different, because it's just like, oh my god, he's changing. And yes, from this point on, he does change. Like, his personality goes from, being a lot more so against his living situations to being a lot more comfortable. So overall, this is his growth episode, really. This is really meant to show Rusty growing and going from a person that's just like, ugh, I hate to have moved, I hate all this, I'm so miserable and all that, to being pretty cheerful. So anyway, guys, that was about it for the episode. I might have missed 1 or 2 points, but I think that's mostly about it. Anyway, guys, this was a great episode, really fun one. I'm really sorry about the fact that I haven't been able to do it in the past, and I really wanted to do episode 4 for a while, and just do more of these for a while now. And I told you guys in my most recent channel update that I was planning on getting back into this, but I didn't know when that was going to happen due to the fact that my computer issues, I thought they were going to be fixed. The thing was is that I knew how. It's not that they were fixed. It's more like I knew how to fix it, and this is technically probably one of the first videos that I've been able to do with my computer really fixed. So that's great, and I think that says a lot about how I'm really thinking wisely here in regard to the fact that I do appreciate the fact that I saw plenty of you guys really showing your support and love for those three episodes, and I really want to say thank you guys for all that, and I want to say thank you everyone to watching this, and please like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video, whatever that will be. maybe it will be the next Transformers Robots in Disguise video, and if so, cool. If not, then I hope you guys stay tuned and watch, because I plan on finally getting through the rest of these Transformers Robots in Disguise videos, and maybe doing some actual mech review, some actual Transformers bot reviews, and actually getting some real, Transformers in here, and doing some reviews of that eventually, because I really do want to do that, and also just have discussions on Transformers, because I am a big fan of the Transformers, and I think it'd just be fun. So anyway, guys, please stay awesome, and I will see you guys in my next video. So goodbye.